and we are back with another Diffusion podcast episode. Today we have Thiago, the founder of Tanssi, a Polkadot-based protocol focused on app chains. Thiago, welcome, and feel free to introduce yourself.
Hey, Ricardo, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure. So my name is Thiago, as you introduced. I'm one of the co-founders of Tanssi Network, and I'm the CEO of the Tanssi Foundation, right? So Tanssi is an app chain infrastructure protocol, and what we do is to create a faster way for developers and users to launch their own app-specific chains, their own app chains. And yeah, let's dive deeper about what it actually means during the episode.
Yeah, well, I was super stoked for this episode. To be honest, I have to confess I was waiting for a while. You know me, I'm huge into building developers community. I believe the future of blockchain Web3 depends hugely on the developers community. So I'd like to hear from you first. How do you see developers playing a role in this phase of the Web3 space?
Yeah, actually, like that's a very good way to kick it off. I mean, we need developers. We keep saying that we need users, right? But for having users, we need developers, right? I think we are still in a very early stage in the industry as a whole. So we are building a lot of infrastructure. We are not yet with that many consumer-facing apps. They're coming. I see a bunch of cool stuff happening, especially here in Brazil. I'm based in Brazil, and there are many cool use cases here. But still, we have to have more devs. We have to build this dev community in order to have the dreamed 1 billion next users in the crypto space, right? So part of our work at Tanssi is indeed on the community creation, but not only the final users, not only like the the community, like the retail, so to say, but also like generating awareness and spreading the word about app chains, about AVSs, about networks, about rate staking. These are some technical terms actually, but these are some of the main subjects where Tanssi is very strong in.
You see, I absolutely agree with you. And it's funny because when we talk about developers, we usually think about workers. But to be fair, I have mentioned this before. I believe in the future that we will all become some sort of, let's say, programmers, citizens. So the same people that use solutions going to be the ones that not only provide feedback, but also program and help develop the protocols. So in that sense, if you want to touch point on Tansy specifically, because you're a protocol operating on Polkadot, so what kind of issue are you aiming to solve alongside the communities?
Sure. Uh, so let's give a step back and refresh to our audience, right? What are app chains, right? So app chains are essentially layer ones. And these layer ones, they are not like a shared environment, right? So they are not like Ethereum mainnet. They are not like Solana, right? They are an app specific layer one. That means that usually these type of app chains, they have a lot of specialities. They have a lot of customization. Usually the developers that want to build these type of applications, they demand such flexibility, such interoperability, such customizability, right? We are talking about more complex applications in general. We are talking about more scalable, projects that want to have a very scalable infrastructure. And these projects, they are not interested in the infrastructure management, right? So they are already solving super complex problems. So if you think of the applications that we have in Tansy ecosystem, so we are talking about DeFi applications. We are talking about gaming. We are talking about social fi, network states. So all these use cases, they already have a bunch of complexities only in their business rules, so to say, right? So these developers, they don't want to take care of infrastructure management. They don't want to take care of nodes. They don't want to attract liquidity to these nodes. They don't want to take care of slashing mechanisms. They don't want to take care of consensus, right? What they would do want is to build their products, therefore their business rules, which are already very complex. And they don't want to take care of infrastructure management at all, right? And that's actually the problem that Tanssi is solving, right? So it's amazing the degree of customizability, of scalability that the map chain can provide for you, but it's also very like way more complex to build an app chain, right? Because of these components that I just mentioned. So what we are solving at Tanssi is exactly this, right? So when a developer comes to us and they want to build their own app chains, we have our dApp. Our dApp is a codeless solution, and these builders they just connected their wallets to our dApp, and it's a codeless solution, right? So you just give a very simple parameters like what's the name of your chain, what's the name of the base token of the chain, how many decimals, is it going to be a EVM chain or a substrate chain, things like that. And you as a builder, you inform this type of parameters in this codeless solution just by interacting with our UI. And at the end of the process, that takes about 10 minutes, you have your fully running app specific blockchain, right? So you have a chain that's fully operational, producing blocks. And these chains, they already have all the connectivity to wallets, block explorers, indexers, bridgers, RPC endpoints, all this tooling that do not generate any penny of revenue, but they're a requirement for any blockchain based application, right? So essentially, Tanssi takes care of all this infrastructure management to set up all this infrastructure. By the way, we do that in a permissionless way, and we can talk more about it down the road. But we take care of all this infrastructure management, while the teams they are only concerned about building their revenue streams, their business roles, deploying smart contracts, or however they want to develop their products, right? So that's essentially the problem that Tanssi is solving.
That was a perfect explanation, and I couldn't think about anyone that could explain it that way if it wasn't like you. So, me as a marketing person, I cannot like stop thinking about user experience. And from my perspective, I'm trying to make it this as easy as you can to digest. Is you're creating the tools for developers. It's funny. We are also tools for the commons. We actually believe that like we got to a point that we have create more tools, and you're providing like a toolbox actually for developers and also for enterprises. So if you want to also dive into that aspect, because we've been talking about here about the collaborators, the workers, the creators, the developers, but let's also dive into the organizational aspect of it. So how organizations and enterprises can benefit for this kind of solution?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question once again. And I think Tools for the Commons is all about governance, right? And that's essentially what we can provide using an app chain for an institutional player, right? So I always give this example, right? So imagine like a big public listed company, I don't know, Petrobras or Vale, right? All these companies, they're heavy regulated. They have a bunch. They are public listed, so they have to comply with a bunch of rules. They are regulated, as I said, so they also have to comply with government rules and with the regulators. I mean, it's a lot, right? So governance is really one of the most important points for any of these companies. And imagine now a company like this, like that giant public listed company that wants to build their blockchain enabled product, right? So their Web3 application. So essentially, these companies they have two options these days. Not only these companies, but any project, any project that want to build a Web3 product, right? Either you go to a shared ecosystem, again as Ethereum, mainnet, or as one of the rollups, Polygon, Optimism, whatever. or you can deploy your fully independent blockchain, right? So your L1, your app chain, right? When companies use this shared ecosystem, uh, they don't have any control to who else is transacting in that ecosystem. They don't have any control on the money that comes that's on ramped, as we say in the crypto jargon, like the money that's circulating in these shared ecosystems, right? They don't have any control. They cannot whitelist anyone. They simply sharing this computational resource with DeFi applications, with stable coins, with payment mechanisms, with games. A very diverse, like a big number, a big spectrum of use cases that are supported by this shared ecosystem, right? So on the flip side, they can deploy their own chain, right? So their own app specific chain, their own layer one essentially, right? Which is what we are providing at Tanssi. Uh, if these companies they deploy their own environment, they can make it as permissionless or as permissioned as they want. They can make this network as closed or as open as they want. They can whitelist wallets. They can whitelist who is allowed to interact with this chain. What are the wallets that are allowed to interact with this chain? Who are the wallets that are allowed to deploy smart contracts there? So all of that translates into governance, right? Once you can control all the participants on this network, then you actually have all the benefits of having a blockchain and therefore the transparency, the traceability, and all these benefits that we all love about blockchains. But they can have this running in a fully dedicated environment, so they can control as well who is transacting there. So I believe for enterprises, what we are offering with Tanssi, appchains, that's actually like the best of both worlds, right? Because you can have something that's very controlled, like very uh, permission, so to say, as Hyperledger, for instance. But this application, this layer one, still urges the decentralization of this underlying layer, which can be Polkadot, which can be Ethereum mainnet, and many other ecosystems that we either provide support to or that we are going to plug into Tanssi framework going forward. So yeah, I'd say that long story short, I'd say that what we offer for enterprises that use Tanssi as a development framework is pretty much like this governance 2.0, a fully customizable ecosystem that can provide all the benefits of a blockchain, but while this enterprise they can keep the control on of everything that is important, right? So who are transacting there? Who are the ones deploying smart contracts there? Where the money that's transacting there comes from, and all these very important governance aspects.
You see, you went through so many things that I'm absolutely excited for, which is quite difficult for me to pick one of the subjects and focus on. But let's try and focus on governance, because you see, the way like I'm not a tech person, but I have like I don't know, since I was a kid, I had a bigger power of visualization. So I see we are building like a new economical framework when I think about blockchain networks and protocols. We are creating sandboxes to try different policies. So governance as well has been one of the things that I think we've been developing throughout the years when it comes to Web3. I think optimism right now is coming up with something very interesting when it comes to public goods. And I think that's the bottom like at the bottom line, that's what we're going to be working with public goods, because then you have like have values transacting between different blockchains, but you have to establish a way to to make sure that the value is going to the right places and fund the right people and initiatives. So of course this subject is quite complex because it involves like interoperability and also cross-chain oracles. So thinking about like an ecosystem where you have private chains and public chains. um like from your understanding, how far are we from creating a world where all of this is intercommunicating.
Yeah, so I think like that's inevitable that app chains are a trend in the market. If you look at the this app chain ecosystem in the last, I'd say not in the last, but like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we pretty much had Cosmos, Polkadot, and we didn't even like have like a bunch of chains leveraging these frameworks. Nowadays, we have over 40, I think almost 50 actually, parachains running Polkadot, countless chains that use the Cosmos SDK as a development framework. You have all the rollups, you have the L3s. I mean, you pretty much have like a bunch of uh, different, I would say, different types, different flavors and colors, so to say, of app chains or app specific rollups. So app specific environments, right? So, and we also have a bunch of layer ones, right? So we saw recently Sui and Aptos creating like a whole different development framework for L1s with the Move VM. We have Ethereum, we have Solana, we have many other layer ones. So your question, right, Ricardo, is like how this all connects, how this all interoperates,
Yes.
right? And I think like we are not that far. I mean, we have a bunch of initiatives. You have bridges, you have the general messaging protocols, you have, for instance, in Polkadot, you have something called XCM, that's pretty much like a layer of interoperability and assets exchanging. In Cosmos, you have the IBC, which is pretty much the same. So you have a bunch of experiments, right? Some of them are more advanced, some of them are like more battle tested, some of them are more in a more early stage. But given the fact that app chains are definitely like a trend, given the fact that you have many types of layer ones, shared environments for layer ones that use different types of virtual machines, which means like essentially different types of tech stacks. That's a need for the market since a long time, right? And then we saw like the evolution of Wormhole, Axelar, Layer Zero, as like probably like the three main bridge providers and GMPs. Of course, more recently, you saw also Chainlink developing a bunch of cool stuff in that direction as well. Now we are even talking about how can we consolidate all these bridges in one single API. For instance, that's what the guys from Glacis are doing. So Glacis is a bridge aggregator in a way that like if you have a blockchain yourself, like a layer one, you can connect to Glacis, and Glacis is going to be connecting you to many different bridges. So if you configure this to be, for instance, if you want to use always like Wormhole, Axelar, and Layer Zero, Glacis return to you like the what's the most affordable bridge operation among these three that you trust, right? Or if one of these three bridges fail, you have two other bridges as backup, right? So that's what essentially a bridge aggregator does, right? And we are seeing even, I mean, we already seeing this type of sophistication, right? So I'd say I agree with you that like the world is more and more multi-chain, right? I think this idea that we had in the past, like who is going to be the Ethereum killer, I think that's gone, right? So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I think once I had a meeting with the guys from Petrobras, and they were telling Thiago, there is no single IT vendor in the world that can fulfill all the demands of Petrobras. And I don't think that blockchains are going to be any different, right? And that really, I really kind of, you know, I absorb that a lot. So to the same making an analogy with blockchain, right? So of course, Ethereum is not going to be like the best environment for all the applications. Solana is not going to be the best environment for all the applications. App chains, that's why the app chains emerge, right? Because people need customizability. So if the world is going to be multi-chain, and it is, how can we interoperate? So I think these guys who are building these bridge projects, they have a very, very big responsibility in their hands, but they're they're really doing a great job. I think there are many cool projects, not only the main ones, as I said, the biggest bridges, but also like these uh, other products that are emerging, like to for making the life easier for builders, like to deal with all these possibilities that you have right now, right? So I think like yeah, of course, again, they're still early in the industry as a whole. Imagine in this segment of the industry, bridges interoperability, but we are seeing a bunch of cool stuff emerging for in the market more recently.
Yeah, and when you think about it, it's like we have been moving quite fast. Look, I'm not that old. I'm millennial, but I remember the dot-com bubble, and there was a lot of businesses arising from the that moment in history. And now I see the same happening, but in a different fashion. And we are much more digitized in a sense. So in that time, we were like we didn't have enough like the same amount of technology that we have today. We have like it's not like when we're talking about what we're building in Web3 or even network state level, we're not only talking about blockchain. We're talking about AI. We're talking about IoT. There's so many things that all together can create. Like for honestly, I believe we're building. That's why I joined two sort of commons with Hugo. We are building the future of nations. Like again, it's just crazy that sometimes I think not everyone is aware of what's happening. Like how many things we have done throughout these years when it comes to the blockchain, and the rest of the world is not aware about all the experimentation going on. And I think that's the main point. Rapid experimentation. We are trying different stuff like in sandbox models, and every network is becoming a certain way. Like Ethereum, like was like I don't know indisputable, and now you have Solana growing, and I don't think there will be any network that will be like, oh, this is like the number one network blockchain, and it's invincible. I believe different networks, depending of the time and situation, what kind of like I don't know collective of people are working there, will be able to implement different things that will work and serve as an example for the others. I think that's the importance of intercommunication as well. I know a friend of mine in Zurich in Swiss mentioned that like she's all about ICP, but she goes to Solana events, to Ethereum events, and the communities are like talking to each other. There is no, like, oh, I'm not talking with people from that protocol. So I think that's gone. And more importantly, people are starting to understand the importance not only to intercommunicate in a, let's say, tech level, but also culturally. So if you wanna like expand on that, from of course you're a tech guy, but having what I said as a base, you can probably develop on that.
Yeah, so that's actually a very cool question. When it comes to, I'm probably gonna give a more broad answer here. I think when it comes to blockchains in general, right? So I think the concept of interoperability, the concept of, uh, you know, yeah, actually giving a step back. Usually people think of blockchains as systems, right? And systems are, by definition, interoperable, right? So you can call an API and one system talk to each other, right? You can have a shared database, right? That's accessed by many systems, right? But that's not really how blockchains work, right? So blockchains they are siloed, right? So blockchains they only know each they only know like themselves, right? They don't know other chains, and that's why we are talking about this aspects of the importance of bridges and everything. So I think when it comes to interoperating culturally, right, I think there's a big gap to be filled on the policymakers, on the companies, I mean, there's a lot to be learned before actually implementing things in blockchains.
My understanding is culture. that's changing, has been changing, but we are also talking about generations. So we have been into a culture that told us that we should be competing with each other. Yeah, but we are transacting into a culture, mostly millennials, Gen Z, some of Gen X, are into collaboration. So I think that's the main proposition of Tools for the Commons, and I believe as well that's the main proposition as for what we're building in Web3. So how feasible it is for you, one, based on your own experience, collaboration in the blockchain industry or even a protocol level? How, like, what case of examples you have that are positive or something that you remember that kind of worked when it comes to collaboration?
Yeah, sure. I think the DAOs, right? DAOs are an excellent example about collaboration on chain. Um, there are many types of DAOs with different types of goals, right? So you have DAOs for making investments. You have, I mean, the protocols themselves, like the Polkadot is a giant DAO, right? So they have a treasury that's allocated depending on voting processes. I mean, it's a very flexible infrastructure. So I would say that, yeah, probably DAOs are one of the best examples of how these type of things can happen on chain, right? And together with DAOs, of course, we have the decentralized governance, right? I mean, that's a very fun part of the industry, right? Because yeah, there are arguments pro and con these organizations. So in one aspect, you have it's interesting because you have like all the community voting and like expressing their opinion about each subject. On the flip side, the trade-off is you have by definition less yeah, a slower ecosystem, right? So the decision process is not as fast as a centralized infrastructure, right? So a centralized model. So I think that's one of the aspects, right? But I think definitely like DAOs are super interesting types of entities that we are seeing more and more in the Web3. And I think the tools for the commons, like you guys are not bootstrapping DAOs, but more or less, right? And actually, maybe that's a question for you, right? So, do you see that all the network states that you guys are putting to run, can they be considered DAOs or not? Like, how do you see that?
Well, that's a question that you should definitely ask the founder. I had him here in our first episode of Network Say, but me personally, of course, I don't speak for the founder. I do believe so. To be honest, I believe I talk about this with Hugo, and I see we are a DAO in a certain way as well. I have the same views as you as when it comes to not only Polkadot, but I would say all the protocols, all the networks, they are DAOs. Like there are people that are working together. Even if they are not on the same team, they are contributing to the network. So to be honest, I see them all as network societies, even
Yeah,
prototypes for network states. So itself, again, we can be here calling it whatever DAOs, Borgs, but at the end, what it really matters for us is that people are finding different ways to collaborate, and that's not being enforced on a national level by politicians and governments, but people just find it might be easier, to let people do what they do best, as long as they are doing something on the blockchain, on the network level, on the protocol. They are contributing. Some of them they might be testing products. Some of them they might be providing feedback. Some of them might be actually deploying smart contracts. So everyone has a part in it, and not I'm not going to exclude as well. I know writers, content producers, everyone is like very important because if we're doing something for someone, you know, developers will be programming, designers will be designing, but someone has to bring this to the market and get people on board. So I think again, even social fi here, like we have like a small time. I don't want to like take too much time on this, but I think like social fi as well will be amazing for the Web3 space because then you start rewarding creators and again we are on the stage in the world that we see the importance of decentralized social medias. And once we get more people onboarded on there, people that are also already, let's say, capable to explain and provide guidance to the newcomers, will be moving quite quick. And we have been moving, like I'd say, from my perspective, like we have moved so much in the last 2, 3 years. Well, Thiago, it was amazing to have you here with us. We have only 5 minutes left. But I'll also like to hear from you. Of course, I'll give you a small space for you to pitch your own social medias, but your perspective about the future for the next, let's say, 2 years.
Yeah. So first of all, like anything I say, if I say with a lot of confidence, I might be wrong. This space changes like so fast. It's practically impossible to predict the future. If you see where we are right now and what are the training topics in the crypto industry, these topics were not here like 1 year ago, right? So we are talking about AVSs, we are talking about networks, we are talking about restaking, right? Modularity, um, alternative DA layers. I mean, all of that was not here like 2 years ago for sure. So what I can say is that I agree. I mean, I think that the app chain space is going to be developing a lot. I think once we solve this part of the puzzle, like the infrastructure management, and that's something that Tense is working on, and many other projects are working on. We have a bunch of roll up as a services as well that are addressing these type of issues in a different way. Of course, like Tanssi, we do that like fully permissionless. The roll ups as a service, what they do is like to actually, it's more like a SaaS model, right? But I would say these are two different approaches to solve more or less like the same or very similar problems, right? So what I can tell is that I think the app chain space is going to be completely competitive in a sense, but it's going to be evolving as it evolved in the last, I would say, 2 to 4 years. For the next 2 years, I think it's going to continue like this. I think interoperability is going to be more and more a big thing once the app chain space evolves. There's a very famous investor in the crypto space called Chris Dixon, which I'm a big fan of, and he says that like interoperability is to computer software like compounded interests are for finance, right? So I think interoperability is what allows the industry to grow that fast, and of course that's what generates the bigger amount of yield, so to say, in the software world. And I think Web3, crypto, that's the first time in the human history that we've kind of found a way to monetize free software, right? So if you combine free software and interoperability, that's very, very powerful. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest drivers of the Web3 space. It always was, but I think this is going to be one of the biggest drivers of the Web3 and the crypto industry going forward.
Thiago, it was lovely to have such a tech person here with us in this episode. We tried, of course, to keep it as entertaining as we could. Of course, sometimes technical information can get a bit, not as easy to digest. So I tried, to make it more relaxed. But I think we were able to convey a good message here to the people. I agree with everything that you brought here. Tiago, once again, I'll leave you just a few minutes for you to conclude and mention your social medias and also Tanssi ones.
Sure. So, first of all, Ricardo, once again, thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. We are big fans of Tools for the Commons. I think like our partnership is just starting, and I see a very bright future for this collabs that we are cooking together. When I say the that app chains are gonna be continued growing. I think that we mentioned many different use cases here, but for sure one of the most interesting ones are the network states. Of course, like what you guys are doing uh, is not only interesting for a tech perspective, but also that's like a social experiment, right? So that's something that excites us a lot, intensely. So we are very excited about the days to come, the years to come with it. Let's keep building interesting stuff. And yeah, I invite everyone to all our audience to follow us in social media. It's Tanssi Network in Twitter and in LinkedIn. We also have Tanssi Network channel in Telegram. Um, Discord as well. So pretty much if you search for Tanssi Network, or if you access our website, www.tanssi.network, you can also find the links for all these media channels that I just said. We are super excited with the things that we are launching, and I invite all you guys to follow us closer. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
amazing. Well, thank you, Thiago. So I hope you see you all guys on the next episode and see ya.